Catch him now! Stop that thief!
Thief! Thief! Catch him! The shout exploded across the market as a mango struck the back of Kofi's head. He stumbled forward and turned around just in time to see Mensah and his friends laughing so hard they could barely stand. "Look at him run!" Mensah shouted. "He probably stole the king's breakfast too." The crowd laughed. Kofi tightened his grip on the bundle of firewood resting on his shoulder and kept walking. Another mango flew past his face. "Maybe the beggar prince is too proud to answer us today," another boy mocked. Mensah stepped directly into his path. "Say something." Kofi looked at him calmly. "What do you want me to say?" Mensah smirked. "Tell them your real title." The boys burst into laughter. "The king of firewood, the prince of poverty, the future ruler of goats." The market erupted with laughter again. For a moment, Kofi wanted to shout back. For a moment, he wanted to fight. Instead, he adjusted the firewood on his shoulder and walked away. Behind him, the laughter followed him all the way home. Mama Isi was waiting outside their small house when she saw him coming. She immediately noticed the bruised mango stain on his shirt. They did it again. It wasn't a question. Kofi forced a smile. "It was nothing." She crossed her arms. "Kofi?" He looked away. "They were only joking." Mama Isi stepped closer. "There's a difference between a joke and cruelty." Kofi sat on the wooden bench outside the house. "Grandma, why do people hate being poor so much?" The old woman was silent. Finally she spoke. "People are afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that one day life may humble them too." Kofi looked down at his hands. "Do you think my parents would be disappointed in me?" The question hit her harder than he knew. She slowly sat beside him. "No." "How do you know?" Her eyes became wet. "Because your father was a good man." Kofi frowned. "You knew my father?" Mama Isi froze. For a second, she looked as if she had said too much. "I mean, a good man would be proud to have a son like you." Kofi smiled slightly. "I wish I had known them." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes the answers we seek arrive when we least expect them." That night, long after Kofi had fallen asleep, Mama Isi reached beneath her bed and pulled out an old wooden box. Inside was a golden bracelet wrapped in cloth. Engraved on it was a lion surrounded by the sun, the royal symbol of Benin. Her hands trembled as she held it. "They are getting closer to the truth," she whispered. A tear rolled down her cheek. "I promised I would protect him." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. At that exact moment, royal horns echoed through the village. The king's messengers had arrived, and the news they carried was about to change Kofi's life forever. The royal messenger climbed onto the village platform and raised a scroll high into the air. "Hear the words of His Majesty King Tade." Villagers gathered from every direction. Children stopped playing. Traders abandoned their stalls. Even Mensah and his friends pushed through the crowd to get closer. The Festival of Light will be held in 7 days in the capital city of Benin. Cheers erupted immediately. "The festival returns. I haven't seen it in 5 years." The messenger continued. "All villages are invited to attend. There will be music, contests, trade opportunities, and royal blessings for the people." The crowd cheered louder. Then the messenger raised his hand for silence. "And this year, the sacred stone of kings will once again be presented before the people." The entire crowd fell quiet. Even Kofi had heard stories about the Stone of Kings. Legend said it recognized the blood of the royal family. Some claimed it glowed in the presence of a true heir. Others said it was only an old myth. Mensa laughed loudly. Imagine if Kofi touched it and became king. His friends burst into laughter. Kofi ignored them, but Mama Essie did not laugh. Her face had suddenly turned pale. That evening, Kofi could barely hide his excitement. "Mama, can we go to the festival?" She remained silent. "I've never seen the capital before." Still, she said nothing. "Please." Mama Essie slowly looked up at him. "The capital is dangerous." "Dangerous?" "Sometimes secrets buried many years are not meant to be uncovered." Kofi frowned. "I don't understand." She forced a smile. "Neither do I sometimes." He laughed. "That makes two of us." For the first time that evening, she smiled back. 3 days later, they joined a caravan traveling toward Benin. The closer they got, the larger the roads became. The larger the roads became, the smaller Kofi felt. When the city gates finally appeared in the distance, he stopped walking. The walls were taller than any building he had ever seen. "Grandma?" "Yes?" "People actually live behind those walls?" She laughed softly. "You sound disappointed. I thought kings lived in the clouds." She smiled. "You would be surprised how ordinary kings can be." The moment they entered the city, Kofi's eyes widened. Merchants shouted from colorful stalls. Musicians played drums. Dancers performed in the streets. The smell of roasted meat filled the air. For a few moments, he forgot he was poor. For a few moments, he felt like he belonged. Then reality returned. "Look, everyone!" Kofi froze. Mensa. Of course it was Mensa. The rich boy walked toward him with a grin. The village beggar made it to the capital. His friends laughed. "Careful," one of them said. "If he sees gold, he might try to steal it." More laughter. Mensa pointed toward the palace in the distance. "Maybe he's here to apply for the position of royal cleaner." Kofi clenched his fists. Not because he was angry, because he was tired. Tired of the jokes, tired of pretending they didn't hurt. Mensa noticed. "Oh, look, the beggar is angry." Kofi finally spoke. "What do you gain from this?" Mensa blinked. "What? Making fun of me every day? Does it make your life better?" For the first time, Mensa had no answer. One of his friends stepped forward instead. "You should know your place." Kofi nodded slowly. "And where exactly is my place?" The boy smirked. "Certainly not near the palace." Before Kofi could respond, royal trumpets blasted through the city. The festival ceremony had begun. Crowds rushed toward the royal square. Kofi followed with Mama Essie beside him. But as they entered the square and her eyes landed on the stone of kings standing at the center, all color disappeared from her face. Kofi noticed immediately. "Mama?" Her voice shook. "We need to leave." "What?" "Now." He stared at her in confusion. "Why?" Before she could answer, a voice echoed across the square. "Bring forth the stone of kings." The crowd roared, and Mama Essie knew the moment she had feared for 16 years had finally arrived. Don't forget to like and subscribe as you enjoy this story. Thank you.
The high priest stepped forward and raised both hands toward the crowd. "People of Benin, welcome to the Festival of Light." Cheers exploded across the square. "For 16 years, the priest continued, our kingdom has carried a wound that has never healed." The cheering slowly faded. 16 years ago, Prince Jabari, son of King Adewale and Queen Amara, disappeared during the attack on the palace. The square became silent. King Adewale died believing his son was still alive. Even King Tade lowered his head. The priest pointed toward the massive stone standing in the center of the square. And today, as tradition demands, the Stone of Kings will once again bear witness to the bloodline of Benin. The crowd erupted into applause. Kofi looked at the stone. It looked ordinary, just an old rock covered in ancient markings. He leaned closer to Mama Isi. "That's the famous stone?" She wasn't listening. Her eyes were fixed on the stone. Her hands were shaking. Kofi frowned. "Grandma, what's wrong?" She swallowed hard. "Kofi." Before she could continue, royal guards escorted King Tade toward the stone. The crowd erupted. "Long live the king!" King Tade raised his hand proudly before placing it on the Stone of Kings. Nothing happened. The crowd still applauded politely. The high priest nodded respectfully. Then several members of the royal family stepped forward one after another. Again, nothing happened. Whispers spread through the crowd. Then came a familiar voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have forgotten someone." Kofi closed his eyes. "Mensa." The rich boy pushed through the crowd with a grin. "The village prince hasn't had his turn yet." Laughter exploded around them. Mensa pointed directly at Kofi. "Come on, your majesty." His friends joined in. "Maybe the stone has been waiting for him. The king of firewood finally returns to his palace." The crowd laughed again. Kofi felt heat rising in his face. He turned to leave, but the high priest suddenly spoke. "Let the boy come forward." The laughter stopped immediately. Mensa blinked. "You can't be serious." The priest's face remained calm. "The stone rejects no hand." Kofi looked toward Mama Isi. Her face had turned completely pale. "Kofi," she whispered. "Don't." He stared at her. "What? Please." Fear filled her eyes. Real fear. For a moment, he almost listened. Then Mensa laughed again. "See, even his grandmother knows he doesn't belong here." The crowd laughed. Kofi took a deep breath. Slowly, he stepped toward the stone. Every eye in the square followed him. His heart pounded. He reached out his hand. The moment his fingers touched the stone, a loud crack echoed through the square. Boom! Golden light exploded from the stone and shot into the sky. The crowd screamed. Several people fell to the ground. The stone began glowing so brightly that people covered their eyes. Kofi stumbled backward. What is happening? Then he felt a burning sensation in his right hand. He looked down. A glowing mark was appearing on his skin, a lion surrounded by the sun, the exact symbol carved into the palace gates, the royal symbol of Benin. The entire square froze. A woman dropped the basket she was carrying. A guard fell to his knees. The high priest stared in disbelief. "No!" An elder stepped forward. "It cannot be." Kofi looked around in panic. "What is this?" The high priest slowly approached him. His voice trembled. "Young man, where did you get that mark?" "I don't know." King Tade suddenly stepped forward. His face had become pale. "Guards!" The soldiers immediately surrounded Kofi. "Seize him!" The crowd gasped. The high priest stepped between them. "Your Majesty, the mark is fake," Tade shouted. "This boy is an impostor." Kofi stared at the king. "I've never seen this in my life." "Silence," Tade roared. The king pointed at him. "Take him away immediately." Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Touch him and you'll be arresting the rightful heir to the throne." Every head turned. Mama Isi stepped into the center of the square. Tears streamed down her face. King Tade's expression changed instantly. "No." She looked directly at Kofi. The time for hiding is over. Kofi stared at her. Grandma, what are you talking about? Her voice broke. You were never my grandson, Kofi. The entire square went silent. You are Prince Jabari. He shook his head. No, you were the baby I carried out of this palace 16 years ago. The crowd gasped. Kofi stepped backward. No! Tears rolled down her cheeks. I changed your name. I raised you as my own. I lied to protect you. Kofi could barely breathe. The people who had mocked him moments earlier now stared at him in horror. Mensa's face had gone completely white, and King Tade looked terrified because for the first time in 16 years, the dead prince had come home.
King Tade took a step backwards. No, his voice was barely above a whisper. Mama Essie looked directly at him. You remember me, don't you? The king said nothing. You remember the palace servant who escaped through the eastern gate while your men were hunting for the prince? The crowd erupted into shocked whispers. Kofi stared at her. Your men? Tade immediately pointed toward her. She's lying. Mama Essie raised her voice. No, your majesty, I have spent 16 years hiding from your lies. The king's face hardened. Arrest her! None of the guards moved. The high priest stepped forward. No one moves until the truth is heard. The crowd erupted in applause. The king looked around in disbelief. For the first time in years, nobody was obeying him. Mama Essie wiped her tears. That night, the palace was burning. Soldiers were running everywhere. Queen Amara placed the baby prince in my arms. Her voice shook. I can still hear her words. She closed her eyes. Please, save my son. If he stays here, they will kill him. Kofi stared at her silently. I ran through the smoke with you in my arms. I hid in the forest until morning. When I returned, everyone believed the prince had died. She looked at Tade, but I knew the truth. The king laughed bitterly. A touching story. Then his expression darkened. But stories do not make kings. Before anyone could answer, an old voice echoed through the square. But evidence does. An elderly man slowly walked forward. The crowd immediately recognized him. It was Elder Bako, former advisor to King Adewale. The old man held a small wooden chest. King Tade's face turned pale. No! Elder Bako opened the chest carefully. Inside was a royal bracelet bearing the symbol of the lion and the sun. Mama Essie gasped. I thought it was lost. The old man nodded. The queen placed this on Prince Jabari's wrist on the days he was born. He turned toward Kofi. Do you have a birthmark behind your left shoulder? Kofi frowned. Yes. Gasps spread through the crowd. The old advisor continued. The royal family of Benin has carried that mark for generations. King Tade suddenly shouted, This proves nothing. Elder Bako slowly removed another item from the chest, a sealed scroll. The late King Adewale ordered me to protect this until the prince returned. The crowd fell silent. The old man broke the seal and began reading. If harm comes to me or my son, investigate my brother Tade. I fear ambition has entered his heart. The square exploded with shock. King Tade's face lost all color. That is a forgery. The old advisor ignored him and continued reading. Should my son return one day, let the kingdom know that the throne belongs to him and him alone. Silence covered the square. Then one of the royal guards stepped forward. He removed his helmet and dropped to one knee before Kofi. I saw an oath to protect the royal bloodline. Another guard knelt, then another. Within seconds, dozens of soldiers were kneeling before the village boy they had almost arrested moments earlier. The crowd erupted. Long live Prince Jabari! Long live the true heir! Mensa stood frozen. His lips trembled. This can't be happening. Kofi looked at him. For years he had dreamed of this moment. He had imagined revenge. He had imagined humiliation. Instead, all he felt was sadness. King Tade suddenly tried to run. "Stop him!" someone shouted. The guards quickly surrounded him. His shoulders dropped. He knew it was over. For 16 years, he had sat on a throne built on lies. Now the truth had finally caught up with him. As the guards led him away, he turned toward Kofi. "You think being king will make your life easier?" Kofi said nothing. Tade laughed bitterly. "The crown is heavier than you think." For the first time, Kofi spoke. "Maybe." The former king stared at him. "But unlike you, I won't carry it alone." Tade lowered his head and walked away. The crowd erupted in cheers. That night, Kofi sat quietly in the palace gardens. Mama Essie approached slowly. Neither of them spoke for several moments. Finally, Kofi broke the silence. "So, my real name is Jabari." She nodded. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Losing you." Kofi looked down. "You wouldn't have lost me. I already lost your mother and father that night. I couldn't lose you too." He looked at her. "You raised me." She wiped her eyes. "I lied to you." "You loved me." She looked up. "You still call me grandma?" Kofi smiled for the first time that day. "You will always be my grandmother." She broke into tears and hugged him tightly. Weeks later, Prince Jabari made his first journey back to Benin. The entire village gathered to welcome him. The same streets that had once echoed with insults were now filled with cheers. Mensa slowly stepped forward. His head was lowered. "I'm sorry." Kofi looked at him quietly. "For what?" "For everything." His voice shook. "I laughed at you because I thought being poor meant being less than everyone else." The crowd became silent. Kofi nodded slowly. "When I was poor, I wanted people to see my heart instead of my clothes." Mensa looked down. "I know." Kofi placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then make sure you never treat another person the way you treated me." Mensa nodded. "I promise." Months later, thousands gathered for the coronation of the lost prince. As the crown was placed on Jabari's head, the crowd roared with joy. But the new prince looked toward the place where Mama Essie stood smiling through tears. He remembered the firewood. He remembered the hunger. He remembered the laughter. And he promised himself he would never forget any of it. Because a ruler who remembers pain will never ignore the pain of his people. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, what would have happened if you were Kofi? Would you have forgiven the people who mocked you? Sometimes life hides kings beneath torn clothes. Sometimes destiny waits in silence. And sometimes the hand the world refuses to shake today becomes the hand that wears the crown.